She thought she owned the showroom, but the wealthy woman ridiculing an old man in my luxury car dealership had no idea his beat-up car held the keys to her family's financial ruin. The Saturday rush was in full swing. From my glass-walled office overlooking the showroom floor, I had a perfect view of the organized chaos. I'm the general manager of one of the top Mercedes-Benz dealerships in the state, and Saturdays are my battlefield. Polished chrome gleamed under the recessed lighting, the air smelled of German leather and fresh coffee, and my sales team, sharks in tailored suits, moved with a predatory grace. It was a symphony of commerce, and I was its conductor. That's when she walked in. You can spot her type from a mile away. Let's call her Karen, though the name on her credit card would probably be something like Caitlin, with 2 N's and a silent E. She was mid-40s, wearing a tennis bracelet that probably cost more than my first car, and her face was pulled into a permanent expression of mild disappointment with the universe. She didn't walk. She glided, her heels clicking on the marble with an imperious rhythm that announced her arrival. My top salesman, Mark, was on her in seconds, flashing his 1,000-watt smile. "Welcome to Mercedes-Benz of Northwood," he began, his voice as smooth as the paint on the new S-Class beside him. "Is there anything I can help you find today?" She waved a dismissive hand, her rings catching the light. "My son Braden is graduating. He needs a car. The G-Wagon, black on black, top spec. I don't have all day." Mark didn't miss a beat. "An excellent choice. A truly commanding vehicle. We have a beautiful one right over here." I leaned back in my chair, a small smile on my face. Mark had this in the bag. It was an easy, high-margin sale. The best kind. My attention was about to drift to the sales figures on my monitor when a vehicle pulled into the front row of the customer parking lot, and my smile instantly vanished. It was a car that didn't belong, not just in the front row, but on the same postal code as my dealership. It was a late 90s sedan, the color of a faded hospital gown, with a constellation of rust spots blooming on the passenger side door. One hubcap was missing, and as it sputtered to a stop, it let out a final, rattling cough of smoke that seemed to apologize for its own existence. The driver's door creaked open, and a man got out. He was maybe in his late 60s, a black man wearing simple, faded blue jeans, and a plaid button-down shirt that had seen better decades. His work boots were scuffed and looked comfortable. He moved with a slow, deliberate pace, not looking at the gleaming monuments to engineering around him, but just toward the front door of the dealership. Down on the floor, Karen had noticed. Her head snapped toward the window, her perfectly sculpted eyebrows knitting together in disgust. "Good heavens," she said, her voice carrying across the showroom. "What is that?" Mark, ever the professional, tried to steer her attention back to the 6-figure SUV. "The G-Wagon is equipped with a twin-turbo V8, ma'am. The performance is simply breathtaking." No, look," she insisted, pointing with a perfectly manicured finger. "That person in that jalopy. Is he lost? Is he a delivery driver? You can't possibly let people like that park in the front. It's bad for the brand." The man continued his slow walk toward the entrance, his gaze steady. He seemed completely unbothered by the opulence around him, as if he were just walking into a hardware store. I could see Mark's shoulders tense. He was trying to salvage the situation, trying to placate this nightmare of a customer, while not being openly rude to the newcomer. "Everyone is welcome to browse, ma'am," Mark said through a tight smile. "We pride ourselves on our inclusive atmosphere." Karen let out a short, sharp laugh that sounded like breaking glass. "Inclusive? Darling, this is a Mercedes-Benz dealership, not a soup kitchen. He's probably here to use the restroom or ask for a handout. You should have your security escort him off the property before he scares away actual customers." I felt a surge of anger. "I don't care if you're buying out the entire lot. You don't treat people that way in my showroom." I stood up, adjusting my tie. It was time for the GM to step in. I was about to head out of my office and intervene, to politely inform Mrs. Davenport that her business was no longer required, when the man reached the glass doors. He pulled the heavy door open and stepped inside. The hushed, climate-controlled air of the showroom enveloped him. He paused for a moment, his eyes scanning the floor. He saw the G-Wagon, he saw Mark's frozen, panicked face, and he saw Karen, who was now staring at him with undisguised contempt. Then she did it. She looked him up and down, from his worn-out boots to his simple plaid shirt, and she laughed. It wasn't a little chuckle. It was a loud, theatrical, braying laugh, designed to humiliate. She pointed right at him. "Oh my God, he actually came inside!" she howled, turning to the other customers in the showroom as if she were putting on a show. "Can you believe the nerve? Does he think he's going to buy something? Sir," she called out to him, her voice dripping with mockery, "I'm not sure you can even afford the floor mats in here." A mortified silence fell over the entire dealership. My salesman froze. The couple looking at a new E-Class turned to stare. Mark looked like he wanted the polished floor to swallow him whole. The man didn't flinch. He didn't get angry or defensive. He simply let her finish, a patient, almost weary expression on his face. He met her gaze for a brief second. Then his eyes moved past her, scanning the room until they found me, standing halfway between my office and the scene. Our eyes locked. He gave me a slow, deliberate nod, a silent acknowledgement. Then he turned his attention back to the fuming woman and the petrified salesman. He completely ignored her insult, looked straight at Mark, and spoke. His voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the silence with the effortless authority of a lifetime of command. "Son," he said, his voice calm and gravelly, "is this the woman who wants to purchase the G-Wagon?" Mark just swallowed hard and nodded, unable to form words. "Good," the old man said, giving the SUV an appraising glance. He then looked back at Karen, a strange, unreadable glint in his eye. "Tell her it's no longer for sale." The silence that followed was absolute. For a full 3 seconds you could have heard a pin drop on the showroom's plush carpeting. Karen's face went through a rapid series of micro-expressions: confusion, then indignation, and finally, pure, unadulterated rage. Her perfectly coiffed head snapped toward Mark, her eyes blazing. "Excuse me," she hissed, her voice low and dangerous. "What did he say? Did you hear what this thing just said to me?" Mark looked like a deer caught in the headlights of an oncoming freight train. His mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. His eyes darted from Karen to the old man, and then finally to me, a desperate, silent plea for rescue. It was time. I strode forward, my polished Oxfords making no sound on the floor, projecting an aura of calm authority I did not feel. "Ma'am, sir, perhaps there's been a misunderstanding," I began, positioning myself between them. My plan was to de-escalate, to apologize to the man for her behavior, and then politely but firmly ask him to let my salesman do his job. But before I could get another word out, the old man looked at me, a flicker of recognition in his eyes. "Frank," he said, his voice as calm as a still lake, "it's good to see you. You're keeping the place looking sharp." I stopped dead. My blood turned to ice water in my veins. He knew my name. I'm Frank Miller, the GM. My name is on a placard on my desk, not on a name tag. No regular customer would know it. My mind raced, flipping through a mental Rolodex of every VIP customer, every corporate executive, every mystery shopper I'd ever met. Nothing. The face was unfamiliar, yet the way he held himself, the quiet, unshakable confidence, it was starting to click into place with a terrifying certainty. Karen, however, was not having it. "Frank? Is your name Frank?" she spat at me. "Well, Frank, are you going to do your job and remove this vagrant from your store? He is harassing me. He is interfering with my purchase. I am trying to give you my money, and this person is telling me I can't." She punctuated her statement by jabbing a finger in the man's direction. He didn't even look at her. His eyes were still on me, waiting, and that's when it hit me. A memory from 5 years ago, at the annual corporate retreat in Scottsdale. A keynote address from the founder and owner of the entire Sterling Auto Group, the parent company that owned this dealership and 24 others. A man who started with a single used car lot in the 1960s and built an empire. A man who was famously reclusive and hadn't been seen at an individual dealership in over a decade. Mr. Alistair Henderson. My throat went dry. The picture from the newsletter was 20 years old, but the eyes were the same. Calm, intelligent, and missing nothing. He was older now, his hair grayer, his face more lined, but it was him. The king had come to his castle, dressed as a pauper. "Mr. Henderson," I finally managed to say, my voice barely a whisper. I apologize. I didn't recognize you." The name hung in the air like a bomb. Mark's face went completely white. The couple by the E-Class, who had been watching the drama unfold, suddenly looked very interested in the tire pressure placard on the door jamb. Karen, however, just scoffed. The name meant nothing to her. She let out another one of those hideous, braying laughs. "Oh, this is rich. Mr. Henderson, did you two rehearse this? Is this some kind of scam you run on wealthy customers? Let me guess, he's your manager," she said, making air quotes with her fingers. "And you're going to tell me he can give me a special price if I just slip him a little cash? You people are unbelievable." She turned back to Mr. Henderson, her face a mask of condescending pity. "Listen, Grandpa, I don't know what your game is, but it's over. Now get out of my way. Frank here is going to sell me that car, and then he's going to call the police and have you arrested for trespassing." Mr. Henderson didn't even sigh. He just absorbed her venom with a sort of weary patience. He finally turned his full attention to her, his gaze level and direct. It was the first time he'd really looked at her, and for the first time I saw a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. The confidence of a man who owns the ground you stand on is a powerful thing, and even she could feel it. "Ma'am," he said, his voice still quiet, still calm, "I do not run scams, and I will not be calling the police. But you are correct about one thing. You will not be buying this G-Wagon. Not today. Not ever." "You have no right," she shrieked. "I'll call your corporate office. I'll have your job, Frank, and I'll have yours too. You—" Mr. Henderson held up a single work-worn hand, and she fell silent. "There's no need to call corporate," he said softly. "They'll just route the call back to me." He paused, letting the weight of that statement sink in. He then tilted his head slightly, as if just placing her. "You're Elaine Davenport, aren't you? Your husband is Robert Davenport. Davenport Development." Karen's jaw tightened. "What's it to you?" A thin, cold smile touched Mr. Henderson's lips. It didn't reach his eyes. "Robert is trying to secure the financing for that new downtown high-rise project. He's been working on it for a year. A very ambitious project." He looked me dead in the eye, then back at her. "The lead financing is coming from Sterling Capital, my investment firm. I have the final say on that deal. The board meeting is this Tuesday. Tell Robert I'm very much looking forward to discussing his portfolio and his character references." The color drained from Karen's Elaine's face. The transformation was astonishing. One moment she was a raging inferno of entitlement, the next a statue carved from frozen panic. The name Sterling Capital had been a direct hit below the waterline, and her entire battleship of arrogance was sinking fast. Her mouth opened, a little O of disbelief, but no sound emerged. The tennis bracelet and designer handbag suddenly looked like cheap props on a crumbling stage set. Mr. Henderson let the silence stretch, allowing the full implication of his words to permeate the air. He wasn't just some anonymous old man anymore. He was the ghost of her financial future. He held the fate of her husband's biggest project, possibly his entire company, in the palm of his calloused hand. And she had just spent the last 10 minutes treating him like dirt she'd found on the bottom of her expensive shoe. He then turned away from her, a dismissal so complete it was more insulting than any invective. His attention shifted to Mark, who still looked like he was about to faint. "Mark, is it?" Mr. Henderson asked, his tone shifting from icy steel to something warmer, more approachable. Yes, sir. Mark Chilton," he stammered, his professional composure completely shattered. "Mark," Mr. Henderson said, clapping a surprisingly strong hand on his shoulder, "you handled that with professionalism and grace under extreme pressure. You didn't take the bait. You defended the dealership's values. That's not salesman work, son. That's management material." He gave Mark's shoulder a firm squeeze. "Frank, I want you to give Mark here a $10,000 bonus, effective immediately. And let's start talking about a path to assistant manager for him. He's earned it." Mark's eyes widened, filling with a mixture of shock and dawning joy. He looked at me, then back at Mr. Henderson, utterly speechless. "Sir, thank you, sir," was all he could manage. "Don't thank me," Mr. Henderson said with a genuine smile. "Thank her. She gave you the opportunity to show me what you're made of." He gestured vaguely toward the still frozen Elaine without even looking at her. Finally, Elaine's system rebooted. Her survival instincts kicked in, overriding the rage and humiliation. She took a half-step forward, her hands clasped in front of her as if in prayer. The haughty aristocrat was gone, replaced by a desperate supplicant. "Mr. Henderson," she began, her voice quivering and almost unrecognizable, "please, I am so terribly sorry. I was having a bad day. My son, the stress. I wasn't myself. I can be abrasive. It's a flaw, a terrible flaw. Please don't take it out on my husband. Robert has worked so hard. This project is his life." It was a pathetic, transparent performance. She was practically groveling on the marble floor she had so imperiously clicked across just minutes earlier. I almost felt a sliver of pity for her. But then I remembered the contempt in her voice, the way she had laughed, and the pity vanished. Mr. Henderson listened patiently until she finished, his expression unreadable. He then turned to face her one last time. "Ma'am," he said, his voice flat and devoid of emotion, "my father was a sharecropper in Alabama. He worked 16 hours a day in another man's field for most of his life. He drove a rusty Ford pickup that was older than I was, but he was the most decent, honorable man I have ever known. He taught me that you can judge the true character of a person not by how they treat their equals, but by how they treat those they believe are beneath them." He paused, letting the words hang in the air. "You have shown me your character today, Mrs. Davenport, and I can assure you it will be noted in my report to the board." He turned his back on her for the final time. It was over. He walked slowly toward the center of the showroom, his old work boots silent on the floor, and stopped beside a gleaming obsidian-black Maybach S680. It was the crown jewel of our inventory, a $400,000 behemoth of luxury and power. He ran a hand gently over the hood, a look of quiet appreciation on his face. "Frank," he said, his voice now relaxed, as if the entire preceding drama had been nothing more than a minor inconvenience. "This is a beautiful machine. Tell me about it." I quickly snapped back into GM mode, joining him by the car. "It's the new V12, sir. 621 horsepower, hand-stitched Napa leather, executive rear seating package, electro-transparent panoramic roof. It's the finest car we build." "It is," he agreed with a nod. He peered through the window at the opulent interior. "I think my wife, Eleanor, would like this." He looked up at the ceiling for a moment, as if making a calculation. "You know, our anniversary is next week. Our 50th. He fell silent for a moment, a fond, faraway look in his eyes. Then he straightened up and looked at Mark, who was still standing by the G-Wagon, looking dazed. "Mark," Mr. Henderson called out, "you've just earned a big bonus. Now I want you to earn your first commission as a future manager." He tossed a set of keys through the air. Mark fumbled but managed to catch them. They were the keys to the rusted, faded sedan parked out front. "Go get that piece of junk I drove here in," Mr. Henderson said. He then turned to me, a wide, almost mischievous grin spreading across his face. "I'm going to trade it in for this Maybach." His grin widened. "And Frank, I expect you to give me a very, very generous trade-in value." I couldn't help but let out a laugh. Not a small chuckle, but a full, genuine laugh of relief and sheer astonishment. The tension that had gripped the showroom for the past 15 minutes evaporated like morning mist. The absurdity of the situation was perfect. The owner of the entire company, a man whose net worth could probably buy a small country, was standing here grinning like a schoolboy about trading in a car that wasn't worth the scrap metal it was made of for our most expensive vehicle. "Mr. Henderson," I said, matching his grin, "for that particular vehicle, with its unique history and sentimental value, I think we can offer you full sticker price on the Maybach. An even trade." He let out a booming laugh that echoed through the showroom. "Frank, you'll bankrupt me. No, I'll pay for the car. But I want the boy to write it up. Give him the full commission." He looked over at Mark, who was now jogging toward the front door, keys in hand, with a look of pure, unadulterated ecstasy on his face. He was no longer a salesman. He was a man who had just won the lottery. My eyes drifted over to where Elaine Davenport had been standing. She was gone. Sometime during my exchange with Mr. Henderson, she had slunk away, disappearing as quietly as a phantom. There was no dramatic exit, no final, shouted threat, just a silent, humiliating retreat. I imagined the phone call she was about to have with her husband, and for the first time that day, I felt a flicker of something close to pity. She had flown too close to the sun on wings of arrogance, and the fall was going to be a long one. The fate of Davenport Development was sealed, not in a boardroom, but right here on this showroom floor. As Mark pulled Mr. Henderson's old sedan up to the service entrance, a few of my other salesmen, who had been watching from a safe distance, cautiously approached. They offered their congratulations to Mr. Henderson, shook his hand, and treated him with the reverence usually reserved for visiting royalty. He was gracious and warm, asking their names, how long they'd worked here, and about their families. He wasn't the reclusive billionaire from the corporate newsletters. He was just a man who loved cars and appreciated people who worked hard. He was one of us. The reason for his disguise became clear. It wasn't a test for me, or for the dealership in general. He hadn't come here looking for trouble. He had simply come, as he later explained while we signed the paperwork in my office, to feel the pulse of the company he had built. "You can't learn anything from a spreadsheet, Frank," he'd said, sipping the coffee I'd made him. "You learn it from the people. You see who they really are when they think no one important is watching." He told me the old sedan had been his father's last car. He kept it running as a reminder of where he came from, of the humility and hard work that formed the bedrock of his empire. Sometimes, he said, he just liked to drive it around, to be an anonymous face in the crowd, to see the world not as a CEO, but just as a man. Once the paperwork was done and the Maybach was being prepped by our top detailer, Mr. Henderson stood up to leave. Mark was going to drive him home in his new car, personally. Before he walked out of my office, he paused in the doorway and turned back to me. "Frank," he said, his expression serious now, "that woman, Mrs. Davenport, she reminded me of why I have a zero-tolerance policy for that kind of behavior. It's a poison. It rots a company from the inside out. You run a fine dealership here. Your people are good. Mark is a testament to that. You handled yourself well." "Thank you, sir," I said, the praise warming me more than any bonus could. "It means a lot coming from you." He nodded. "Keep it up. And Frank?" "Sir?" "That old car of mine," he said, a twinkle returning to his eye. "Don't you dare scrap it. Clean it up, put it in the corner of the showroom. Put a little sign on it that says, 'It's not what you drive, it's what drives you.' Let it be a reminder." With a final handshake, he was gone, leaving me alone in the quiet of my office. From my window, I watched as the magnificent Maybach, gleaming under the afternoon sun, purred to life. Mark, looking like he was floating on air, held the rear door open for Mr. Henderson. The car pulled away smoothly, disappearing into traffic, leaving behind a story that would become the stuff of legend at Mercedes-Benz of Northwood. I looked down at the showroom floor. The couple who had witnessed the whole thing were now happily signing papers for their new E-Class. My sales team was buzzing with renewed energy, a sense of pride and purpose in their step. Mark was going to be a manager. A woman's cruelty had cost her family an empire, and a quiet, humble man had reminded all of us what truly matters. I picked up my phone and called my head of service. "Carlos," I said, a wide smile spreading across my face, "I have a new vehicle for the showroom floor, and it's going to need one hell of a detail.